Supposedly in the 1900s, the party flipped, right? But what did not change is their love for immigration and how they have always prioritized that over the Black community. The commission finds no national interest in continuing to import lesser skilled and unskilled workers.
Hello, I'm Andre Barnes. If you're hungry for more of the truth, then join us for the PB&J Hour. Peyton Jackson and I will discuss the news of the day, policy, and issues that affect your community. It's the PB&J Hour. It is that time again. I'm with my co-host, Peyton Jackson. I'm Andre Barnes, and we're going to run through the news of this week. We had Mayor Brandon Johnson flip-flopping, Mayor Adams flip-flopping, and we also had Karen Bass jumping for joy. But before we get it all into that, we want to let you know that the PB&J Hour is now on YouTube. Woo woo! So we're on YouTube. You'll be able to find us there. Policy Bars in Jackson. In parentheses, it'll say PB&J Hour. People are already going there. If you're not there, you're missing out. And also, please follow us on X. Peyton and I are on X, and that's where we're dropping bars. That's where you're really keeping up with us day to day. So our true fans will also follow us on X. They will also respond and comment there as well. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, please like and subscribe because that builds our channel. All right. So, Peyton, there's a lot going on in your state. Oh my gosh. You have some redistricting going on. What's happening?
Too much. So we are working on a map that they just released yesterday morning. Super excited for it. Now, here's the thing. I can't speak for Houston, and I won't speak for Houston. Like, the idea of me driving down to the Houston area and speaking on a district that I don't live in, that I wouldn't do something like that. But I'm not the majority, clearly, here in the state of Texas, because liberals across the state decided to travel to the city of Arlington and speak against the redrawing of District 33. You would think that this is a perfect map. It looks like it makes sense, and it's all good to go. Like, clearly, anybody that touches this map, it's a for sure racial issue, and that's just not the truth. Not for District 33. I can't speak on Houston. I won't speak on Houston. When it comes to District 33, I know it like the back of my hand. Not only is the map and super funny looking, so you can just look at the map and just question a lot of things, let alone the shape. But if you know anything about politics, especially in District 33, especially in Tarrant County or in Fort Worth, for whatever reason, people in Fort Worth tend to vote who they went to high school with or school with instead of common sense policies. They held a meeting at UTA in Arlington on Monday the 28th. First, they had a rally. This is the funny part. They had a rally, decent sized rally. But at the bottom of the flyer, they had wear white. Leave it to the Democrats to follow tradition. Leave it to the Democrats to follow tradition. Literally had a planned rally in the parking lot. And now they're attempting to do the very same thing tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in Austin for another public hearing. But they flooded public comment on Monday with hundreds of people who don't live in a district, and one and two are nowhere close to District 33. And I'm convinced, according to the testimonies that I was forced to sit through, because I was supposed to speak, I'm convinced that no one actually looked at the map before they even decided to open their mouth. They were paid protesters.
Yep.
From across the state of Texas, not in District 33 or surrounding District 33. Why couldn't the incumbent, who's been in office for 12 years, rally up registered voters within the district? Then I would have sat back and said, okay, good job. But that's not what happened. Mark Vesey and Jasmine Crockett literally flooded public comment on Monday. And I'm sure they did the same in Houston and we'll do the same tomorrow in Austin. They flooded our public comment with hundreds of people who are nowhere near District 33, silencing the voice of actual residents. And it looks as though the GOP is about to do exactly what they want to do anyway. The new map, to me, it makes sense. Now District 33 has excluded Fort Worth and Tarrant County in total. And if you ask me, that's exactly what District 33 needed, especially when it comes to representation. They've been starved of representation, especially in West Dallas. So I am excited for the new
Good.
changes. Not to introduce myself, because some people actually stayed within the district lines, specifically in West Dallas. But I'm going to allow them to go ahead and finalize the map, and then I am back to boots on the ground. So I'm excited, even though what I am witnessing is pure stupidity. I am also realizing there's a lot within our system that we need to change. Whenever we have meetings when it comes to redrawing maps, only registered voters from that district or surrounding that district should have any say so, especially when it comes to speaking. Hundreds of people. And don't take my word for it. Actually go and watch the 6 hours that I was forced to sit through. It was like episodes of The View and CNN smashed in the 7 hours that I was forced to witness. Go back and review over the testimony, and you'll hear them announce they live nowhere near this district, but they hate Trump. And that's really what it turned into. It was a anti-Trump fest. And that's not what we need in District 33.
Exactly. And this is what we've seen with the other goofy politicians that are just protesting everything, that are sitting outside of ICE detention centers like they're out on a slumber party or something, or they're getting arrested, or they're breaking into news conferences. It's all protests, but it's all meaningless. And it's just slowing down the inevitable. Because if they were willing to negotiate, work on policy, then we would see something get done. But this resists just because it's not helping anything. All right.
No.
Well, I am excited about the rest of our show. I'm glad that you're out there, boots on the ground, dealing with all the crazies. It will get better. And you're going to be able to rally your own base. And I do believe that the Republicans are going to pump some energy down into Texas. So we'll see what happens around policy and supportive candidates that support their policy.
Absolutely.
Right. We're going to watch a video about Mayor Adams. Start with him.
Now, from Fox, we do want to take you out to New York City regarding some major breaking news when it comes to lawsuits that have been filed by the DOJ suing New York City as well as Mayor Eric Adams over sanctuary city laws. Take a look at what Attorney General Pamela Bondi put on X. This statement saying the Department of Justice is suing New York City and Mayor Eric Adams for continuing to obstruct law enforcement with sanctuary city policies. If New York's leaders won't step up to protect their citizens, we will.
I'm going to stop it right there, Peyton, because this is a total reversal from just a year and a half ago. This same mayor was discussing with Fox News and all the other outlets that would listen, if we keep on with this path, allowing these sanctuary city policies, allowing all these people to flood in, then this is going to cost New York $12 billion to fix. And we're going to have to drop essential services. And Cardi B was about to lose her mind. She was like, it was about to get really dirty in New York. And they were doing everything they could to find the money to keep these services. But now here's the reversal. Now that the heat has come off of him because the Trump administration decided to spare him, pushed off the investigation that the Biden administration was doing onto him, and said that they were doing it out of malice because he was stepping up for immigration policies that made sense. Because he spoke out, they thought that it was in malice, but he just bided his time, decided that he was just going to do what he had to do to get himself off the hook, and now it's back to business as usual.
And I hate to bring this back to me, but during this whole redistricting process, I've learned, or I think I have figured out why Democrats go so hard for illegal immigration. And I truly believe that it's because of the census and that we include them into our numbers. If you are not here legally, if you are not a U.S. citizen, you should not be included in the U.S. census. And it's because politicians benefit from this system. Like, why are they doing this? Why are they acting like this behind criminals? When again, we don't act like this behind our American criminals. So why are you flipping out over someone who either broke into the country or overstayed their welcome? What sense does that make? Especially in New York, like where they were given illegal immigrants for what? Food stamps for what? Social Security for what? Like, you're pandering to a base that can't vote for you. So it doesn't make sense on the surface, but when you look at how illegal immigrants and everyone else outside of American citizens affect the census, it'll tell you exactly what they're doing this for.
Exactly. That is spot on analysis. And I do think that you're correct with your argument about the census, because it doesn't make any other sense otherwise. But what we keep hearing is trust, fear. This is the talking points that the Democrats are bringing up these days to garner support for these illegal aliens. Let's continue the video.
I want to go out. More continuing coverage here. Fox News' Connor Hansen with more.
The DOJ filing a lawsuit Thursday against New York City and Mayor Eric Adams, claiming the city's sanctuary city policies put its citizens at risk. The lawsuit mentions the recent attempted robbery and shooting of an off-duty Customs and Border Patrol officer. The suspects were in the country illegally and had lengthy criminal histories.
These sanctuary policies do not keep anyone safe. What they do is they hide the criminals who hurt American citizens every day in this country.
Sanctuary laws prevent police from helping the feds with deportations and prevent jails from honoring ICE detainers for nonviolent crimes. The Justice Department calls that obstruction, saying it violates the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. A spokesperson says Mayor Adams wants all New Yorkers to feel safe and supports the essence of local laws protecting immigrants. But the mayor thinks the laws go too far when it comes to violent criminals. For that, the mayor says he welcomes federal help.
If he's going to assist us to go after those individuals, I welcome it. If it's going to be to go after everyday individuals who are trying to complete the path to be a citizen, then I don't think we should do that.
Their actions are not speaking to that, number one, because they're not cooperating with ICE and allowing them to pick up people in jail. And number two, they're getting upset about ICE doing their job and arresting people that are here in the country illegally. Every day that they're in this country, they're breaking the law. And if you're a thief and you've stolen something and you get away with it for a while, you're looking over your shoulder every day. Every day. But that's not what illegal immigrants have been doing for the last few decades. Because what has happened is there's been a false sense of entitlement where they're just like, they're not going to enforce the law. And it hasn't happened until now. Now people are scared. They should be scared if they didn't come into the country the right way. Payne, you have anything else to add there?
I absolutely agree, but we have normalized illegal immigration. And I blame, it wasn't just Biden, but he definitely put an emphasis on all of this. We have normalized, oh, well, it's okay for someone to break into the country as long as they give you a sad story. I don't care how sad your story is. You can't break into my house. So the idea that we have normalized this, no, nobody feels bad for the ICE agents for being attacked by, again, someone who is not supposed to be here. And honestly, none of this is going to change until we start holding our local officials accountable. I am in the DFW where Keller is. Keller is the only city in either Texas or North Texas that has put into place or proposed something that will actually partner with ICE agents to help out this administration when it comes to illegal immigration instead of criminalizing ICE agents like we do across the nation. But conservative cities like Fort Worth and even Dallas, they haven't even taken those steps. So I would not only like to see people follow in line with the city of Keller and what they just did, but on the other hand, if we have mayors or a city council or judges or county commissioners or governors who are willing to promote a sanctuary city and go against the Trump administration, it's well beyond time that we start to hold them accountable for obstructing justice. It's either you follow the law or you don't. If you get in the way, you go to jail.
Exactly. And I like what you are saying about holding state officials accountable. We need to do the same thing with federal officials. But what I think needs to happen is there needs to be more discussions around immigration across the country, because we hear the highlights. We hear about the CBP agent, Border Patrol agent, getting shot in the face. We hear about the rape. We hear about the people getting killed. But we also hear about the people that are coming across the border or trying to make their lives work. But we don't hear the stories in the middle. We don't hear about Americans that are losing their jobs. We don't hear about the people that are left outside of the construction industry. We don't hear about the classrooms that are being packed by illegal aliens and slowing down the progress of some of these classes because the classes become English as a second language first and primarily, and then they're putting resources in that, and those take away resources and slows down the progress of those students. As there needs to be discussions, people need to listen to each other. People need to understand that this immigration policy, that the choices that we make around it has effects on so many aspects of our economy, our lives, and our everything, just everything. It touches everything. So we'll continue with the video.
I agree. I agree to a certain extent. It's
Yeah.
not that we don't hear the stories. We don't hear them as much. I do agree on that. But me and you have been dishing out information for how long? How many books
Yeah.
do we have out?
Yeah.
The information is there. It's just sometimes it falls on deaf ears. But yes, I do agree.
Awesome. All right. We'll listen to more of this.
Earlier this year, the DOJ dropped a corruption case against Mayor Adams, citing the need for him to focus on stopping illegal immigration. The DOJ has already sued the city of Los Angeles and states like New York, New Jersey, and Illinois over sanctuary laws. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
All right, and now we want to show you the response and statement from Mayor Eric Adams saying the job of a mayor is to protect the safety of every single person in their city. And that's exactly what our administration has worked to do every day.
Okay. They're focusing on protecting everyone when they should be focused on protecting Americans. That's not happening. People are getting shot in the face. People are getting raped. People are feeling the brunt of all these people that are in New York illegally. They're feeling the pressure from that. And they, like you said, Peyton, they're more worried about their census and the money coming in, flowing in, to be able to continue to overpay their staff, overpay themselves while Americans get nothing. What do you want to comment on that?
Absolutely. I love his verbiage, but please understand that it was exclusively for this statement. This example of his verbiage and how he used all people in New York instead of all citizens in New York or all American citizens, they put that in legislation and they've been doing that for a decade. And we look right over it. But it's a reason why you don't have to be an American to have American rights. Just like you don't have to be from New York and have rights in New York. Democrats, particularly, really all Democrats, have normalized this idea or ideology that even if you broke into this country, even if you have overstayed your welcome, you still have American rights. We have to reverse all of the laws that hint at that, and we have to work to make sure that's not the new normal. I really want to take pride in my citizenship. I'm a proud American, but what's the difference between benefits as an American and me as an illegal? At this point in time, especially under Biden, I'd probably get more benefits as an illegal than as an American citizen.
I totally thought about going across the border and coming back speaking a different language.
If
And I'm
Harris
getting-
won, that was my
Yes.
plan. If she won, that was my plan because they did everything with nothing invested. And it's sad. We have literally made a mockery out of
Right.
American citizenship. And I'm glad that he worded that statement like that because we need to emphasize that it's bills in Congress that looks like this.
And it shows where his priority is because earlier in the video, it says as soon as they took charges off of him, now he's focusing on the safety of everyone in the state of New York or in his city and using the verbiage that you're saying. So it's all fake. He's just an opportunist at the very least. So let's see what else he had to say.
For nearly 4 years. Keeping New Yorkers safe also means making sure they feel safe. And we have been clear, no one should be afraid to dial 911, send their kids to school, or go to the hospital. And no New Yorker should feel forced to hide in the shadows. And that's why we support the essence of the local laws put in place by the city council. But I have also been clear they go too far when it comes to dealing with these violent criminals on our streets and have urged the council to re-examine them to ensure we can effectively work with the federal government to make our city safer. So far, the council has refused. We will review the lawsuit. So is the latest.
What are your thoughts about that, Peyton?
All I heard was no one should be afraid of calling the cops. That's like me breaking into your house and then calling the cops because you won't let me stay. You should be afraid to call the cops. If you are here illegally, there's no way that you should be comfortable enough to enroll your children into our schools, not call the cops just because you've had a dispute. You should be terrified. You should be terrified. But we have normalized illegal immigrants being comfortable.
And if they're in doubt, they're not sure, then they probably just need to self-deport because they shouldn't feel comfortable if they came here illegally. I'm sorry that you had a false sense of safety for all these decades, that you didn't get your citizenship updated, but that's not my issue and that's not ICE's issue. You have to go. Until you can get your status together, you have to go. So if they're not feeling comfortable, they should probably leave. They shouldn't just wait and see and try to duck and hide. They're making the decision to stay in the shadows. They're not doing what needs to be done to get certified. They're hiding. They're hiding for a reason. And it is not up to the American taxpayers or private donors to allow them to keep hiding.
But I promise you, it's not just him. Back to our hearings for our maps in Texas, if you go back and you listen to what these Democrats are saying, they try and make it a black and brown issue. It's not a black and brown issue. This has nothing to do with black people. They're trying to conserve the Hispanic population because they know it neighborhoods, but they'll say stuff like, oh, in this administration, people call the office because they're trying to resolve or work through their citizenship issues. And I'm like, why are illegal immigrants calling U.S. representatives to help with citizen? If you need help with your citizenship, you are on the wrong side of the border.
That's
And
right.
they have, but they're trying to make this redistricting a black issue, and it's not, especially in District 33.
That's right.
Black people were never the majority. But when you look at what the incumbent like Adams and the statements that they put out, if you don't actually know demographics and the history of the district, you're going to follow something like this blindly and just go along, especially if you already hate Trump. We have to stop leading with emotion. It's right and wrong is wrong. Again, The only right that you should have after breaking into this country is the right to remain silent. We have to stop being so nice.
100%. Right.
Johnson
Now,
spoke about
we'll
his
look at,
decision Friday on the W.
Oh, Lord.
We'll look at one of our favorite mayor he can't stand to be second place to Mayor Adams. He just can't. He has to continue to be the worst mayor in America. Let's see what he's talking about here, because what he's flip-flopping about is the property tax. So they spent all this money on illegal aliens and put the city way in debt. Now he's saying, we're going to add more taxes. But
After
then
he's campaigned on it.
after he campaigned about not increasing tax. Exactly. So then he's gotten heat. So now he's coming back and said, we're going to find creative ways and we're going to tax the rich. You got to believe, you have to see it to believe it.
Ray, Adams, Johnson, and Bass. Really quick. Which one's worse?
I would say that right now it's Bass.
Okay.
Bass is just I think if we looked at longevity, it's
Mhm.
definitely Mayor Johnson. Mayor Adams disappointed me because I thought that he had turned a new leaf.
Right.
So I was like, when I heard that he actually got prosecuted, he was being prosecuted by DOJ, I was like, what is happening? They just cut him loose. Mayor Johnson is the long-term worst, but Mayor Bass is the current worst.
Got it.
He says he's looking for other sources of progressive revenue to address the city's $1.2 billion budget deficit.
We're going to work to build the safest, most affordable big city in America. We're going to create a budget that reflects our values, and we're not going to balance that budget off the backs of working people.
Just hours later, the mayor shared similar remarks at an event in the 49th Ward.
So we're going to find and work with City Council to come up with progressive revenue ideas.
Last year, Johnson proposed a $300 million property tax hike, saying he'd have to break a promise he made during his campaign in order to prevent drastic cuts to city services and jobs. The proposal was rejected by the city council, which later approved a smaller tax increase for homeowners. Where all the money would come from for Johnson to keep the city running in 2026 remains uncertain. Property taxes are among the city's largest sources of revenue. Earlier, Johnson did not rule out asking Governor J.B. Pritzker for help.
Our teams are constantly working together to come up with solutions. And it's not just the state of Illinois, working with our county board president, working with our congressional delegation.
Johnson also hinted at a tax on the area's wealthiest people and corporations to help fill the gap.
We're going to look at everything, but the most important thing that we have to focus in on is that we have the ultra rich in the city, in the state, that have not put enough skin in the game. And when we look at budget deficits across this country, we're seeing a stronger call for the wealthy to actually pay their fair share.
The mayor also spoke with WGN about Chicago Public Schools and its budget shortfall. He says he hopes the city and state can work together to ensure school services like counselors and social workers aren't hindered because of the economic challenges CPS is facing. Back to you.
All right, Emmy, thank you.
So this is exactly what I'm talking about, the flip-flopping. Mayor Johnson was saying, we're going to ask Pritzker, the governor, for help, but you had help. The people were telling you exactly the way that you needed to help them. And that was not to dump illegal immigrants into their neighborhoods. That was to stop providing them with free housing, free food. Do you know that they came and they complained that the food that they were given wasn't culturally correct?
Yep.
It wasn't good enough for them. It was too Chicago for them. And they fixed the food instead of just being like, you could take it or leave it or walk back to your country. They did shows about people that had been illegal aliens and came during the Biden administration. And within 2 years, they're getting donations for houses. They're getting hotels. They're able to go and sleep in the police station. During the freezing cold, there were Black people that were trying to go sleep in the police station. And what happened? They were run out. The illegal aliens had warming buses and showering buses. What are they doing to warm and shower the homeless people that are in Illinois? They spent all this money on the illegal immigrants, and now they're trying to tax the rich. And they're saying that they're not going to tax the working class people, but I don't know how you can do that if you're that far in the red. What do you think?
I have a few thoughts. What really caught my ears is when he said that rich people don't have enough skin in the game. How dare you tax someone who is well off just because you wanted to pander to people who broke into the country? What do you mean they don't have enough skin in the game? We have vets who are living on the street, Native Black Americans, Brown Americans, Americans of all colors living on the streets. They're denied all of the resources that you just handed over to someone who broke into the country. And my problem with the whole tax the rich, not just in Chicago, Illinois, the whole tax the rich thing, throw it out. I've never supported that. And I'm still waiting on my time to be rich. But I've never supported that because I know for a fact our government, they don't know how to effectively spend money. Before Doge, I knew that. The DOD alone can't account for anything. They have never passed an audit. So when I hear like ignorant people say, tax the rich, okay, tax the rich and then do what? Waste the money? And then what? It doesn't make sense. But it goes back to us normalizing this culture. And when it comes to the Black community, not in Chicago, because I'm really proud of Chicago Flips Red.
Yeah.
But they are not the majority of Black people, especially Black women in this country. We are literally cheering for our own demise. And I forgot, it was some politician. He just introduced an act. I forgot his name, but he said that we were funding our own demise. And he's absolutely right. For the past few months, I've been saying in the Black community, we have been cheering for our own demise, especially when it comes to being a permanent underclass. But because we won't read, we won't even go on YouTube to research who Barbara Jordan is, but we allow Democrats in the state of Texas in these hearings to slander her name. Meanwhile, they go against her immigration policies. But there's nothing with Black people clapping in the audience because they don't know what they're talking about. You're literally cheering for your own demise at this point. And I'm just in the crowd just shaking my head because these people, I know these people won't pick up a book. Even if I put it in a speech, they won't take heed to it because they're colorblind to these political parties. And it just does not make sense.
Exactly. And that's why it is so important to keep building these different coalitions. Chicago Flip Red, Chicago Go Red, Chicago Red. All these different organizations, Braver Angels, all these organizations that are working toward pretty much the same thing, which is they want people to discuss what's happening, to make change, and it's at the grassroots level. It's at a lot of different levels. But as long as we keep talking and keep pushing forward, more people are going to get the information. And I'm glad that we're here on a mission to help people get that information. And I think what Mayor Johnson was saying about the rich people not having skin in the game is he's probably thinking to himself, I didn't send the illegal immigrants into your neighborhood. We didn't send them to the rural areas. We didn't send them to the suburbs. We put them in the city. So now you guys need to cash out and pay me back for taking care of you guys when we were busing all these people. And I think that's what's going on in his mind.
But they should have bused him right to the gated communities because the conservatives, the rich folks, would have went downtown and got him recalled.
Yeah.
And Chicago wouldn't be in the state that Chicago is in. That's exactly what should have happened. But like I've been saying for months, when these people break into the country, they're not going into gated communities. They're going into our communities like South Poly that was once predominantly Black and is now overran by people, millions of people who cannot vote. But it's the community that has to wake up because we shouldn't have to send them to a gated community for the community that could be affected for them to understand simple supply and demand. How is this not going to affect your resources from education to funding to housing? How is that not going to affect you? It's simple supply and demand.
That's right. That's right. And that's what people don't get when we're talking about the housing market rent rates going. You have more people that are competing for the same housing, rent's going to go up. If you have people that are competing for the same jobs and there's not as many jobs as there are people, then
And
the
someone else
wages
is
will go
willing to
down.
do it for a fraction that you are.
That's right. That's right. Then those wages go down, but people don't want to look at economics in that way when we're talking about people.
Right.
So the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about was our favorite mayor, Mayor Bass.
Key news, LA Mayor Karen Bass says another 1,000 National Guard troops will be leaving Los Angeles. Bass called it a win in a late-night tweet. She went on to say the city will continue to pressure the federal government until all of the troops are out of the LA area. This announcement comes days after the Pentagon announced 700 Marines would be leaving. 2,000 National Guard troops were also withdrawn earlier this month. With today's announcement, that leaves about 1,000 troops in Southern California.
So Mayor Bass has been so quick to jump for joy about this situation with the troops being taken out of her city. She has even gone as far as to say that they were never needed. No one ever asked for them. And if you remember looking at the footage, the clips, everything was out of control. Everything. And ICE agents were getting rocks thrown at their cars. There are people like launching fireworks at ICE. There are shootouts. People are getting gas and hit with like rubber bullets. It was a mess. There was a curfew, and she's still sitting there. Oh, all is well here. We have this under control. Wasn't true. Now she's jumping for joy because she feels like she's getting a win because she's feeling like what she's saying is causing them to pull out. No, they're pulling out because they don't need these troops because they can bring in more ICE people to do what they need to do. They've got the situation under control. They don't need as many of these troops to do what they're doing.
Sometimes I think, and I know it's very unpatriotic to say, but sometimes I think that if we could just break California off or build our border like to exclude California, we'd be a lot better. If the people of LA had really some go about themselves as a city, she would have been recalled after that fire that happened earlier this year. So I bring it back to the people. We can complain about the politicians all we want, which they are idiots, but it's the people who keep them in office.
That's right. And I agree with you. There's one thing that I would say that kind of alleviates the people in some situations. Because there are groups of people that are trying to recall Mayor Bass, recall Mayor Johnson, and even recall Mayor Adams. But what's happening is that they're playing all these political games where they're getting bills kicked out in the Rules Committee that will prevent them from being able to vote on whether they want to remain a sanctuary city, to even have it be on the ballot for them to vote for on a later time. These are the types of things that are preventing people from getting to the recall process. Some of these states have it written to make it really hard to recall governors and also mayors. I think that there needs to be a clearer process. So if a mayor or a governor gets down to a certain percentage, there cannot be a way for them to prevent themselves from getting recalled. It doesn't make sense. Mayor Johnson is probably around 19%, or even in the last poll I heard, he's in single digits. How has he not been recalled yet? They know the political games to play.
Yeah, I agree. And then sometimes the amount of signatures that you need for a recall is just outlandish. I think that it shouldn't vary state by state. That should be like a national standard. If you have a mayor or a governor or any politician that isn't doing their job, set a decent percentage of signatures from people that live in that area to go ahead and get that person recalled. And when I say recalled, I don't mean we just don't pay you and you sit there. No, you should have to be forced to step down.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay. I wanted to share this post with you about the Amnesty Act because a lot of people are thinking we need to show some dignity to these illegal aliens that have been here for decades. We need to create a path for citizenship. What that sounds like to me, Peyton, sounds like 1986. Whole bunch of amnesty. All right. So let's look at this folks from Numbers USA. All right. The Dignity Act would be a disaster for American workers. It would add 17 million permanent foreign workers over 10 years through amnesty and increases in legal immigration. Numbers USA opposes the Dignity Act, which is HR 4393. That is HR 4393 is garbage. And here's what it does. It adds over 17 million permanent foreign workers over 10 years through amnesty and increases in legal immigration. This is crazy. Why would we give away our leverage now at this point? We've secured the border. We've gotten to months where the border has been at 0 illegal crossing. And now we're saying we need to worry about the people that have been here for decades who ICE is handling right now. We need to focus on Americans and getting more of them to work. There have been Americans that have been edged out of the workforce, and we need to reactivate them back to work. We don't have time to mess with these people that are here illegally. They need to either self-deport or be deported.
So I was always taught to take care of home first. So I echo exactly what you just said. If we are already having problems in our home base, how can we possibly prioritize the American worker, their American voter, while taking care of someone else? How is that feasible for the American worker, the average worker? And how is that right to just completely push them out of the workforce? But it's the Democrats pushing this. And again, they advocate for increasing the minimum wage, but they won't federally mandate E-Verify. And then they push things like this. How, at what point do we actually stop making a mockery out of American citizenship, but also really put Americans first?
Absolutely. And I don't think that happens until we put HR 2 and E-Verify into place. We need 60 votes in the Senate. And if we don't get those 60 votes before the midterms, then we may be doomed, because who knows what the tide will be after the midterms? Who knows who's going to be in office? I hope that there's a continued conservative wave of sensible immigration policies, but I just don't know what could happen between now and then. So we need to get this now.
Absolutely.
And if we're going to get anything close to what you're saying, we need long-term legislative immigration policies and not this garbage here. All right.
Before we move on, I do
Yeah.
want to emphasize a lot of people are up for re-election next year.
Yeah.
So again, the paperwork starts in November, at least for the state of Texas. Think about running. If you are a young conservative, please think about running. Not in my district, but any other district other than that one. Yeah. Think
Love
about
it.
running.
Yes, we need great representation. We need people with new ideas that are going to push for sensible policies and not these crazy left-wing policies that don't make any sense and only really help 2% of the population. More about the Dignity Act.
Our economy needs a reliable working force in areas. Our economy needs a reliable working force in areas where other Americans don't participate.
Your reaction to the Congresswoman, who seems very angry right there, but her view is basically Americans. It's really a negative view on Americans. And as coming from a family that did a lot of blue collar work, I'm so offended by that Americans don't do this. Maybe you drove down wages and Americans always did that type of work until it couldn't actually support a family.
You're exactly right. It is a myth that Americans don't want to work. Give me a break. When these corporations won't pay Americans a decent wage, that's the problem. We see Americans out there willing to work. Under Donald Trump, wages are going up. But Laura, I'm with you 100%. The Republican Party's got to shake off one of the things that's made them losers before Donald Trump is they kept saying that we needed to have more immigration that would displace American workers. No, we don't. We need to give American workers a fair deal. We need to give them a fair shake, let them get back to work. Trump ran on that in 16, in 20, and 24. That's why he was victorious. Republicans need to listen. No more of this establishment, comprehensive immigration, bring in a flood of immigrants. No, exactly. He's fixed it.
Trump's done it, enforced the border, shows that it works, deporting criminals, getting them out of this country as fast as he can, and I hope the numbers improve. But any move toward that nonsense will be fought tooth and nail by not just MAGA, but by millions of people across the country who are sick of those lies. And frankly, it's a very negative view on the American workforce. I completely reject it.
We don't need any more amnesty whatsoever. I know that, Peyton, you're familiar with working class families in your district. When you hear about 17 million additional workers, how does that affect them at the local level?
It makes my blood boil because it goes back to the resources. It's not just jobs. Those people going after those jobs, they have families because that's one of the ways to stay in America by birthright. And that leads into our public education system. And we already know that's failing. So it's not just jobs, it's housing and education, other resources that's being stripped of American workers, of American people and families. And back to what he said, it really is a dig against the American person, the American citizen. It's not that we don't want to work. With production comes gratification. Grant Cardone said that. Yeah. I love to work. I love my house. I love my car. I love the iPad that I'm speaking on, the phone that I'm looking at. I love to be able to purchase things outside of just spending to keep the lights on. There's no way to live.
That's right.
And we all know without things like E-Verify being federally mandated, there's no say-so on who's working and how much they're working for. So as an employer, I would love to pay someone under the table to exclude taxes. ICE could be down the street. So I know that worker is loyal and he's very cheap. But as an American true patriot that has standards, not just for this nation, but also myself, I would never do anything like that to take a job away from an American worker. So why Democrats are fighting for this, I don't know. But last week I came to the conclusion it is the census. And it just makes sense because, not to go back to California, but if we were to actually exclude illegal immigrants from our census, they would lose at least 2 seats, right?
Yes.
That's what I read.
More than that. Maybe 2 to 5 seats.
It's insane. And I didn't even know illegal immigrants were included in the census until a few days ago. Because in my community, in the Black community, filling out the census is just, that is not something that we do. Like in my community, whenever the census was brought up, people, adults would say, oh, I don't want the government in my business. And then when I think back to it, it's insane because the very same people were filling out food stamp applications and were on Section 8. So they know exactly who's supposed to be in here. But Black people, we don't fill out the census. So we are underrepresenting our own selves because there's certain benefits they know with the illegal immigrants, they know that they get certain benefits if they do fill out the census. In order for Americans to complete a U.S. census right now, after the whole 4 years of search the border, no illegal immigrant in their right mind would fill that out. But I'm hoping Black people, Black and brown people, actually take it serious because it is serious to complete your census because we know how much representation we actually need for that area. But at the very same time, we cannot include foreign nationals and illegal immigrants. Unless you are a U.S. citizen and your dependents, you should not be included. And we can also go a step further to say, if you aren't registered to vote, you shouldn't be included in the census. And it may seem harsh, but you should have no say-so in how many representatives we get if you're not willing to go out and vote for the representatives that we're about to make room for. But then a step further, but a step further would be if you're not actively voting at least every 2 years, you're not included in this process because In a district like mine, over 700,000 people, only 500,000 are registered to vote, but of that, only 100,000 comes out to vote on average, and that's a problem.
It is a problem.
So if I had it my way, it would be registered active voters and their dependents who are included in the census, while including felons as well. But we really have to get back to prioritizing American citizens and Black people, specifically Black women. We have to stop cheering for our own demise, especially when it comes to this immigration issue.
That's right. And this is spot on, because what we're getting ready to go into now just further shows what you're talking about with the census. Because what happens with the census is it's supposed to give an idea of population so we can figure out how to allocate resources. But a lot of times the Black neighborhoods are like, where are all of our resources? Why are all these businesses and why are all these resources like schools leaving or closing? Maybe because people are doing the census. But when illegal aliens get there, all that stuff opens back up. They're doing the census. They're filling out that paperwork and those resources are pouring in. So it is so important that we do the census, because there's an economic downturn in this country. It's getting better, but because of so much legal and illegal immigration and the lack of a federally mandated E-Verify, there's a lot of recent graduates that are not getting into the workforce. There's a lot of people in tech that are not getting in the workforce. And I just wanted to go over some numbers with you, Hayden, so you could see this and we could share this with our viewers. So before I go to the numbers, I'm going to share a number from Microsoft. Microsoft is laying off about 9,000 employees after reportedly applying to fill those thousands of foreign worker positions in the months leading up to the mass layoffs. During the last fiscal year, Microsoft applied for 9,491 H-1B visa, all of which were approved. So they fired 9,000 and then they tried to hire 9,500 at a lower rate. That's all it is.
They didn't try.
They didn't try. They're playing in our faces. They're playing in our faces. This is just an indication of how H-1B visas, these temporary workers, the optional practical training programs where people from other countries can work in the U.S. temporarily if they're in school. So before they graduate, they can start working and they get paid less, and the employers don't have to pay any taxes on them. So it's a win-win for them. So I don't know why they wouldn't continue to bring in those OPT workers. So it is more of the same around these temporary workers, and it's really having an effect on Americans.
Right now, especially in the city of Fort Worth, we're debating diversity, equity, and inclusion. A certain amount of workers need to fill numbers, so everything is verified. Instead of worrying about diversity, equity, and inclusion, how our corporations should be set up in America is you have a certain amount of American workers. And I don't preach for government overreach, but in issues like this, it's needed. For all 9,000 of those applications to be approved is just insane. And the fact that we have literally normalized this, but when you show figures like that, and when people like Trump say, hey, we have to protect the Black jobs, what do Black people do? We go online and we make memes. We have to stop being so emotional and actually research what's being said, because we had Barbara Jordan speaking about this. We had Dr. Claude Anderson speaking about this, and we had Mrs. King speaking about this. So it's not that we don't have the information. It's not that we don't have leaders refusing to follow the crowd. We are not open to taking in that message as a majority, specifically in the Black community, which is really ironic. Sometimes I think about it, because I know more conservative Hispanics than I know outwardly conservative Black people. The majority of Black people are conservative, but politically we refuse to admit it. But on the brown side, they are conservative And a lot of them, they're willing to publicly admit it, despite most of Americans, or at least half of Americans, thinking that the border crisis is a race issue, in which it is not. So point the finger not to the Black and brown community, but specifically the Black community. At what point in time do we actually open a book? Because the information has been there.
That's right. Open a book, watch the video. All those things will be helpful to understanding these numbers, and listen to podcasts, watch the PB&J hour, because we're dropping the facts right now. So
Right.
I wanted to give you some more numbers. Our co-president, Jeremy Beck from Numbers USA, wrote this article about why do we have all these unnecessary foreign workers? So 6 million Americans wanted jobs last month, but they weren't counted in the labor force. They couldn't find jobs. We also had software development job postings were down 40% from pre-COVID levels. You have young Americans, 50%, 58% of students who graduated last year are still looking for jobs. I remember I had my job lined up when I graduated. So I can imagine getting out of school, having to go all the way back home and not have a job.
I could. $50,000 worth of student loan debt, and there was no job lined up for me. And I'm not looking for a handout. What I'm saying is, if we are going to line up jobs for people right after school, it needs to be Americans.
That's right. We also had 20% of white collar job seekers. They've been searching for work for at least 10 to 12 months. There are people with high paying jobs, white collar jobs. 20% of that industry, they've been looking for work for almost a year. And then 40% of unemployed people said that they didn't land a single job interview in 2024. What was going on?
And here's the thing, that's just the amount of people that they surveyed. And then here's my issue with the unemployment. They don't include part-time, and they don't include people who gave up. So imagine the amount of people that gave up, which one was me, when it came to finding work. So just imagine the numbers that we don't have.
Exactly. And this is why when we're talking about the unemployment rate, it's so interesting, because if you look at one organization that does it, they'll include these numbers, but not others. And it's just, you really have to take everyone's numbers with a grain of salt, except for Numbers USA, of course. 4.3 million young people are now NEET. And what a NEET is, they're not in education, they're not employed, or they're not in any training program. So this type of situation is what organizations like Closing the Gap Year handles. So there's a group of people in Chicago between 16 and 26. And these people are NEETs. They're not in an education program, they're not employed, and they're not in the training program. So what this program, Closing the Gap Year, does is it reaches out to those people and says, hey, let's take you to a college and talk to some people. Let's see if we can get you some job training. Let's see if we can get you back into school. So it is programs like this that are putting Americans back to work. We need more programs like that. We need to get creative about how we're reaching out to people who have given up on the workforce or have been in the shadows of the employment system because of illegal mass immigration, legal immigration that's just way too high, and the unwillingness of tech industries and other industries that are unwilling to hire Americans at an American wage.
Agreed.
So I wanted to share just a few more numbers on this slide here. Tech companies have cut 75,000 jobs since January. That is a 35% increase over the last year, but they continue to apply for guest workers. This is the same industry that cut 170,000 jobs from 2022 to 2023 while registering for 780 guest workers. So do you see the pattern here? They fire all the Americans and they bring in all the guest workers. And it is just not at the labor level. It's at the white collar level. It's in the tech industry. It's in engineering jobs. It's in the medical jobs. It's everywhere.
So when do we as American people start to boycott these companies like everybody is trying to boycott companies like Target just because of the whole DEI thing? And we have to stop supporting unpatriotic companies because to me, this is an attack on the American worker. Whenever you fire Americans to hire cheaper workers who are not American, that's possibly the most unpatriotic thing that you could do. That's taking our dollars overseas because we know they're going to send money back home.
That's right.
That's an attack on our dollar. How do we make sure that our money circulates in our community, in our economy, the way that it should, instead of leaving the nation? Just, again, hurting the American worker and family.
It goes back to the policy because we can tax those remittances that they send back to their country.
If they stop whining about tax the rich, how about we tax the money that's actually leaving the country? When everybody wants to follow the crowd.
Yeah, because a lot of them will eventually go back to their country. Living
because it's cheaper to live there than here.
That's right.
I know exactly what they're doing. It's in one of the books. I think it's Think and Grow Rich or The Richest Man in Babylon. It's one of those books, and it talks about the benefits of making U.S. dollars and spending it outside of the U.S. because you get more for your bucks. Financially speaking, they're doing a great job. But when it comes to American workers, families, and the American dollar, we're being drained.
Yes, we are. Payne, we have seen a lot of things today. We discussed flip-flopping mayors. We saw a mayor jumping for joy all over different ideology, different thoughts about immigration policy. We've also seen how these policies have been hurting Americans. We've seen that the Dignity Act is not what we need. We don't need to compromise right now. We need to create a policy that makes sense. HR 2 has passed Congress, but not the Senate. We need to get it through Congress and the Senate this time. We need federally mandated E-Verify, and we need to get rid of these unnecessary workers.
I agree.
Yeah. And you've made an excellent point, and I'm going to let you wrap on this point, is that people need to educate themselves. And it is so important for them to do that because we're in a time where you can't afford to be ignorant now. Because if you're ignorant now, you can find yourself in decades of unfortunate poverty based on your ignorance.
I absolutely agree. I don't think that there was ever a time that we were awarded the privilege to be ignorant when it comes to the American people versus the American government. But now it's definitely not the time to follow the crowd and be willingly ignorant. So pick up a book. Even if the first one is Back of the Higher Line, it took me a year to get through it. It's not that big of a book, but I wanted to fact check everything that I was being fed because it completely contradicted what was being told to me in Democrat meetings or cliques within the Democrat Party. We're supposed to just welcome people who break our federal laws. And that book really broke it down to me on how exactly this affected not just the Black community, but the American community. Join the conversation. We're both on X. My handle is Peyton K. Jackson. That's Payton K. Jackson.
And I'm at Andre Numbers USA on X as well. We're going to wrap it up. It's a pleasure. And remember, do your research first and vote based on policies. We're done with Policy Barnes and Jackson. Until next week.
Supposedly in the 1900s, the party flipped, right? But what did not change is their love for immigration and how they have always prioritized that over the Black community. The commission finds no national interest in continuing to import lesser skilled and unskilled workers.
Hello, I'm Andre Barnes. If you're hungry for more of the truth, then join us for the PB&J Hour. Peyton Jackson and I will discuss the news of the day, policy, and issues that affect your community.